Grandma sat at the family dinner table that Sunday evening, her wrinkled face glowing with the same warm smile everyone loved. The room was filled with laughter, clinking spoons, and the smell of roasted chicken. No one noticed that her hands shook as she held her cup. No one saw her wince as she shifted in her chair. Her back ached badly, and her chest felt heavy, but she kept smiling so the children wouldn't worry. "Grandma, you always make the best pie," little Emily shouted, reaching for another slice. Grandma smiled wider, hiding the pain stabbing deep inside her body. She looked at each of them, her children, her grandchildren, and tried to make her heart stronger than her body. But under that smile, her eyes watered. She pressed her hand against her side when no one was looking, the pain almost unbearable. And then, in the middle of the laughter, Grandma dropped her fork. The sound of it hitting the floor was louder than the voices in the room. Everyone turned. Her smile was still there, but this time it trembled, her lips shaking. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but no words came out. Her body leaned sideways, her chair almost tipping. "Grandma!" Emily screamed. The room froze. The smile was still on Grandma's face, but her breathing was shallow. No one had realized until that moment she had been smiling through pain all along. And just as her son Daniel rushed forward to grab her, Grandma's eyes closed. The room erupted in panic. It hadn't always been like this. For a long time, Grandma had carried her pain in silence. She believed it was her duty to keep the family happy, to never show weakness, to always smile. But the truth was, the signs were there, if only someone had looked closer. It started months before that Sunday dinner. Grandma lived alone in her little wooden house at the edge of the street. The garden was her pride, roses and daisies blooming around the fence. Neighbors always admired how cheerful she seemed. Every morning, she would wave at Mr. Brown, the mailman, with the same sweet smile. But behind closed doors, things were different. Her knees hurt whenever she climbed the stairs. She sometimes pressed her chest when she was alone, whispering to herself, "It's nothing, just old age." Nights were the hardest. She would sit in her rocking chair, groaning softly, but the next morning, she would put on her smile like armor. Her children visited often, but they were always busy. Daniel had his office work, Anna was juggling her kids, and Peter lived in another city. Grandma didn't want to be a burden, so she cooked for them, laughed with them, and told stories like nothing was wrong. "Mom, are you sure you're okay?" Anna once asked after noticing Grandma move slowly while setting the table. Grandma's answer was the same as always. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a little tired." And that was the end of it. No one asked again. No one looked deeper. But the truth was, the pain was getting worse. One evening, when the house was quiet, Grandma almost fell trying to carry a basket of laundry. She grabbed the table just in time. Her breathing was heavy, sweat rolling down her forehead. She wanted to call Daniel, but she told herself, no, they have their own lives. So she smiled the next morning as if nothing had happened. The family thought she was strong. They thought she was unshakable. They thought she would always be there. But inside, she was breaking. As weeks passed, Grandma grew weaker. The smile was still there, but sometimes it looked more like a mask. Her neighbors noticed she didn't spend as much time in the garden. The mailman thought she looked thinner. But no one said anything. Then came that Sunday dinner. Everyone gathered at her house. She cooked their favorite meals, even though her body screamed for rest. She pushed herself too hard because she didn't want them to worry. She laughed at their jokes, hid her pain with her smile, and acted like everything was fine. Until the moment her fork dropped. Until the moment her body leaned sideways. Until the moment they realized the truth too late. Daniel caught her just before she hit the ground.
"Mom."
"Stay with me," he cried, shaking her gently. Panic spread around the table. The children were screaming. Anna's hands were trembling as she reached for her phone. But Grandma's body was limp. Her smile was still faintly there, as if her face refused to let go of the habit she had carried for years. Her lips parted, and in a soft whisper, she tried to speak. Everyone leaned closer, desperate to hear her words. And then, her lips parted, and in a soft whisper, she tried to speak. Everyone leaned closer, desperate to hear her words. "Don't worry," Grandma breathed out, her voice almost gone.
Mom.
"Please don't talk. Just stay with me," Daniel begged, his eyes filling with tears. But Grandma's face was calm. She looked at each of them as if she wanted to say more, but the words were trapped inside. Her smile, faint and trembling, was still there. "Call the ambulance," Anna screamed, her fingers shaking as she dialed the emergency number. The children were crying, clinging to each other, their laughter from a few minutes ago replaced with fear. The siren wailed in the distance soon after. Paramedics rushed into the house. They checked Grandma's pulse, placed an oxygen mask over her face, and lifted her carefully onto a stretcher. Her family followed in a rush, tears streaming, hearts pounding. Inside the ambulance, Daniel held her hand. "Mom, stay strong, please. You're going to be fine." Grandma's eyes fluttered open. She looked at him and gave the smallest smile. But Daniel noticed it now. This wasn't just a gentle smile. It was a smile covering years of pain she had hidden. His heart ached. The hospital was bright, cold, and filled with the sound of beeping machines. Doctors rushed her into the emergency room, and the family was left outside, waiting. The longest minutes of their lives ticked away. Anna held Emily and whispered, "She's strong, sweetheart. She'll be okay." But deep inside, even Anna wasn't sure. Daniel sat with his head in his hands. His mind replayed every moment he had ignored the signs. The way she moved slower. The way her laughter sometimes sounded forced. The way she said, "I'm fine," every time he asked. He felt guilt heavy on his chest. After what felt like forever, a doctor came out. His face was serious. "She's stable for now," he said. The family let out a breath they didn't know they were holding. "But she's been in pain for quite some time. Her heart is weak. She should have been brought in earlier." The words hit them hard. They realized how blind they had been. When they were finally allowed inside, Grandma lay in the hospital bed, pale but smiling faintly when she saw them. The room was quiet except for the beeping machines. "Mom," Daniel whispered, taking her hand again. "Why didn't you tell us?" Grandma looked at them all. Her voice was weak, but her words were clear. "Because I didn't want to be a burden. I wanted you to be happy. So I smiled, even when it hurt." Tears fell from Anna's eyes. Peter, who had just arrived from the city, stood frozen by the doorway. The children looked confused, too young to understand why their grandma would hide something like this. "Mom, you could never be a burden," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "We should have seen it. We should have noticed." Grandma squeezed his hand gently. "You all have your lives. I didn't want to take that away." The room was filled with silence, broken only by the soft sounds of the machines. Each of them was drowning in guilt. That night, they stayed by her side. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, whispering, "Grandma, please don't leave us." Grandma stroked her hair weakly, still smiling through the pain. Days passed. The doctors said she needed rest, medication, and more care at home. The family promised to take turns staying with her, making sure she was never alone again. For a little while, things seemed calmer. They brought her flowers, cooked her meals, and told her stories to make her laugh. Grandma enjoyed the company, but the truth was, her body was still fragile. One evening, after a long day at the hospital, Daniel stepped outside to get some air. He thought about how life had almost taken his mother without warning. He thought about all the times he had brushed off her tired smile. And he promised himself never again. But while Daniel was outside, inside the room, Grandma began to cough violently. The children screamed. Anna dropped the water cup she was holding, and the machine next to her bed began to beep louder and faster.
Her smile was gone this time.
And then, the beeping grew louder. Grandma clutched her chest, her body trembling with each cough. Anna panicked, slamming the red emergency button on the wall. Nurses rushed in at once, their voices sharp and commanding. "Clear the way. Step back. one of them shouted. Daniel ran in just as they pulled a curtain around the bed. His heart felt like it was tearing out of his chest. He could hear the rush of footsteps, the clatter of equipment, and the sound of the machine's alarm. "Mom," he cried, but the nurses held him back. Inside the curtain, Grandma's body shook weakly as the oxygen mask was adjusted. One nurse pushed medicine through her while another monitored her heart rate. Slowly, painfully slowly, the beeping steadied. Then silence. The curtain pulled open, and the doctor stepped out. His face was grave but calm. "She's stable again, but this was another warning. Her heart is struggling. She needs constant monitoring." Relief washed over the family, but it was thin relief, like fragile glass ready to shatter. Daniel fell into a chair, his hands trembling. Anna wiped tears from her face. Emily clung to her grandma's blanket, as if holding it would keep her from leaving. That night, they refused to leave the hospital. Each of them stayed in the waiting area, too afraid to close their eyes. Daniel stared at the floor, whispering to himself, "Why didn't we notice? Why didn't we see through her smile?" Morning came, and Grandma woke up weak, but conscious. She saw their tired faces and whispered with a small chuckle, "You all look worse than me." Even now, she found a way to smile. Even now, she tried to ease their hearts while hers was breaking. "Mom," Daniel said softly, "please stop pretending you're fine. We need to know when you're in pain. We don't want to lose you." Grandma's eyes grew glassy, but she nodded. For the first time, she admitted, "It hurts every day. But I was afraid if I said something, you'd stop smiling too." Her words broke them more than her silence ever had. From that day, the family changed. Anna quit some of her extra work shifts to spend more time with her. Peter promised to visit more often. Daniel arranged for a nurse to check on her regularly. The grandchildren drew pictures for her hospital wall, filling the room with color. Life slowed down. Every small laugh Grandma gave became a treasure. Every story she told became a memory they held tighter. For a while, it felt like things were turning around. She even managed to walk a little in the hospital garden, holding Daniel's arm, the sun warming her frail face. She whispered, "I missed this." But the truth was, the storm hadn't passed. One evening, just as visiting hours were ending, Grandma looked unusually tired. Her smile was faint, weaker than ever before. Anna leaned closer. "Mom, are you okay?" "I'm fine," she whispered out of habit. But then her face tightened. She gasped for air, her hand clutching Daniel's arm with surprising strength. The machine beside her let out a piercing alarm. Her body began to shake. "Doctor, somebody help!" Daniel screamed. The staff rushed in again, this time with more urgency than before. The family was pushed aside as the doctor barked orders. And then, in the middle of the chaos, Grandma's eyes rolled back. The machine flatlined. The sharp, flat sound from the machine filled the room like a scream. "Beep." "Clear," the doctor shouted. A nurse handed him the paddles of the defibrillator. The family huddled outside the curtain, holding each other. Daniel's heart pounded so loud he could barely hear anything else. "Please, God, please," Anna whispered, tears streaming down her face. A loud thump came from inside as the doctor shocked her heart. Grandma's fragile body jerked on the bed. The machine stayed flat. "Again," the doctor shouted. Thump. Still flat. Daniel pressed his hand against the wall, his knees weak. Emily covered her face, unable to watch. "Come on, Mom," Daniel whispered, his voice breaking. "Please don't leave us like this." Third shock, clear. The paddles pressed against her chest again. Another jolt. And then, beep, beep, beep. The sound returned. The line on the monitor twitched back into rhythm. "She's back," the doctor said firmly, his voice steady but heavy. The curtain opened, and the family rushed in. Grandma's face was pale, her breathing shallow, but her eyes fluttered open. And there it was, that same faint smile, as if she wanted to calm them instead of herself. "Mom," Daniel cried, gripping her hand tightly. Grandma whispered in a broken voice, "Still here, don't cry." They all broke down in tears, relief flooding them. But the doctor's words soon reminded them of the truth. She's very weak. You need to prepare yourselves. She may not survive another episode like that. Those words sank into their hearts like stones. Over the next few days, the family stayed by her side more than ever. They read to her, told her jokes, and even played her favorite old songs. Grandma hummed softly, her voice fragile, but filled with love. One afternoon, Emily climbed into bed beside her. "Grandma, why do you always smile, even when you're hurting?" she asked innocently. Grandma stroked her hair and whispered, "Because sometimes a smile is the only strength you can give the people you love." Those words stayed in everyone's mind. Slowly, Grandma improved enough for the doctors to discharge her. The family brought her home, making her little wooden house brighter and livelier than ever. Flowers filled the table, laughter filled the rooms, and Grandma seemed happier just having them close. For a while, it felt like hope was returning. She sat in her rocking chair by the window, her grandchildren gathered around as she told them bedtime stories. She cooked small meals with Anna, even though she had to rest afterward. She watered her roses in the garden, smiling at the blooms. It felt almost normal again. Almost. But the family never forgot the warning. Her heart was fragile. Every smile she gave them now carried both joy and fear. Joy that she was still with them, fear that any moment could take her away. Then, one night, while everyone was asleep, Daniel woke to the sound of something falling. A loud crash echoed through the quiet house. He rushed out of his room. The light in the hallway flickered. "Mom," he called, his voice trembling. No answer. He stepped into the living room and froze. There, by the rocking chair, Grandma was lying on the floor. Her hand was outstretched, her face pale, her body still. The faintest trace of a smile lingered on her lips, but her eyes were closed. "Mom," Daniel shouted, rushing toward her. "Mom," Daniel shouted as he fell to his knees beside her. His hands trembled as he touched her cheek. It was cold. Anna came running, her heart hammering in her chest. Behind her, the children stumbled out of their rooms, rubbing their eyes in confusion. When they saw their grandma lying on the floor, panic filled their little faces. "Grandma!" Emily screamed, rushing forward, but Anna grabbed her, pulling her back. Daniel pressed his ear against Grandma's chest. "Nothing."
No heartbeat.
"No, no, not again," he cried. He started CPR, pushing his hands on her chest, counting out loud with a broken voice. 1, 2, 3, come on, Mom, breathe. Anna called the ambulance with shaking hands, her tears falling onto the phone. The children huddled together, crying. The house that had once been full of laughter now echoed with fear. Minutes later, the ambulance arrived. The paramedics rushed in, moving Daniel aside. "We'll take it from here." The family watched helplessly as they tried to bring her back. Oxygen, compressions, shocks. The same battle all over again. And then, the sound they feared most. One of the paramedics lowered his hands slowly. His face was heavy with sorrow.
"I'm sorry."
"She's gone." The room fell silent. The only sound was the sobbing of her children and grandchildren. Daniel collapsed beside her, holding her lifeless hand. "Mom, I should have noticed. I should have seen through your smile. I'm so sorry." Anna hugged her children tightly, whispering through tears, "She loved us too much to show us her pain." Peter, who had driven all night after the first hospital scare, stood frozen by the door, tears streaming down his face. He had missed too much, and now he could never get the time back. They stayed like that for a long time, broken but together, surrounding the woman who had carried their family with her love and her smile. The days after her death were heavy with grief. The little wooden house felt emptier than ever. Her rocking chair sat still by the window, the roses in the garden blooming quietly without her. At the funeral, the church was packed. Neighbors, friends, and family gathered to say goodbye. Everyone spoke of how kind she was, how her smile had lifted them even on the hardest days. But as Daniel stood to give his eulogy, he said the words that cut deepest. "My mother smiled through her pain, so we wouldn't worry. But the truth is, we should have noticed. We should have looked closer. We should never wait until it's too late to care for the people we love. The crowd was silent. Many wept. Emily placed a drawing she had made on her grandma's casket, a picture of her with a big smile, surrounded by her family. "So you can smile in heaven too," she whispered. After the funeral, the family made a promise to each other. They would never again ignore the small signs. They would ask, really ask, when someone said, "I'm fine." They would pay attention to the smiles that hid pain. Life slowly moved forward, but Grandma's lesson stayed with them. Every time they saw her empty chair, they remembered the strength it took for her to smile through her suffering. And they remembered to show love, not just when it was obvious, but when it was hidden too. Because sometimes the strongest people are the ones who smile while breaking inside. And sometimes love means noticing the pain behind the smile before it's too late.